Everything looks normal. The sky holds the same familiar shades. The air carries the usual scents, and the streets stretch out just as they always have. But something feels off. At first, it's just a whisper in the back of your mind, an uneasy sensation that you can't quite place. You walk through your home, the same home you've known for years, yet the weight of the air feels different, subtle, indistinct. A picture frame on the wall catches your eye, not because it's unfamiliar, but because something about it is slightly wrong. Maybe it was tilted the last time you saw it, but now it hangs perfectly straight. Or perhaps it was a different photo entirely. On the kitchen counter, your keys sit in a spot you never leave them. You're sure of it. A moment of doubt flickers through your thoughts. Maybe you just don't remember putting them there. But then it happens again and again. A word from a loved one that feels misaligned with their personality. A store that was always on the left side of the street now stands on the right. A childhood memory that no longer matches the version your family recalls. The differences are small, almost insignificant, easy to dismiss, and yet they pile up like grains of sand slipping through your fingers, each one a fragment of something larger, something undeniable. Something has changed. The world is almost the same, but not quite. A single step in a different direction. A glance at your phone that delays you by just a second. Choosing coffee instead of tea. Small choices. Insignificant, or so it seems, but each one nudges reality ever so slightly, shifting the path beneath your feet in ways you'll never fully grasp. A missed call that could have led to a conversation that would have changed everything. A book you almost didn't buy, now resting on your shelf, holding words that will shape your thoughts for years. A stranger's face in a crowd that feels strangely familiar. Perhaps, in another version of reality, you stopped to speak, and your life took a different course. It's not dramatic. No thunderclap signals the change. No voice whispers. This is the moment everything diverged. But it happens nonetheless. The fabric of reality bends, adjusts, adapts, folding over itself like a story rewriting its own pages. Today's choices are threads woven into an infinite tapestry. Some lead to paths nearly identical to the one before. Others ripple outward, reshaping everything in ways too subtle to notice, until one day, you wake up in a life that feels just a little different, and you can't quite explain why. Memories are supposed to be reliable, a thread connecting the past to the present, anchoring you in what is real. But lately, something doesn't line up. A childhood book you loved. Its title was different, you're sure of it. The way a movie ended, wasn't there another version? A conversation with a friend, you remember them saying something that, according to them, they never said. First, it's easy to shrug off. Maybe the mind plays tricks, memories shift, details blur over time. But then, others remember it the same way you do. People online recall the same alternate version, down to the smallest detail. The name of a brand, the logo of a product, the spelling of a famous person's name, different yet oddly familiar in a way that feels wrong. The world calls it the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where groups of people share false memories. But what if they aren't false? What if they are echoes of something real, traces of a past that no longer exists in this version of reality? A creeping thought settles in. Maybe the past isn't as fixed as it seems. Maybe memory isn't failing, it's adjusting. And if that's true, then the question isn't just what changed. It's why. A conversation unfolds, familiar in a way that shouldn't be possible. The words, the pauses, the way someone tilts their head. It has all happened before, but not quite like this. The ending feels different, just slightly off from what lingers in the back of your mind. Walking down a street, there's an overwhelming sense that your feet have traced this exact path before. Not just once, but many times. The way the light bends at the corner, the scent in the air, the distant sound of a car horn. It all strikes with eerie recognition. But this is the first time being here. Or at least that's what logic insists. Déjà vu, they call it. A trick of the brain, a momentary glitch in memory. But what if it's something else? A brief overlap. A ripple where two versions of reality momentarily brush against each other. A signal, a whisper from another timeline where the moment played out almost the same, almost but not entirely. And then, Just as quickly as it arrives, the feeling slips away. The world settles back into its expected rhythm. But the question lingers unsettled. Was it just a memory out of place? Or was something shifting beneath the surface, realigning the pieces of reality right before your eyes? The keys are not where they should be, not where they were. They always sit on the table by the door, always. But now they rest on the kitchen counter. No one moved them. No one was even home. A book on the shelf. Wasn't it on the other side yesterday? The clock on the wall. It used to have bold numbers, didn't it? Now they're thinner, sharper, but no one else notices. A favorite cafe, the one that's been on the corner for years, suddenly has a new name. A store sign has changed color overnight, though everyone insists it's always been that way. First, it's easy to dismiss. Maybe memory plays tricks. Maybe the mind fills in gaps. But then it keeps happening. Small things, almost imperceptible on their own, but stacking up like a pattern waiting to be recognized. Reality is supposed to be stable, solid, but these tiny disruptions suggest something else. Not mistakes, not forgetfulness, adjustments. Something is shifting, and the question isn't whether things are changing. It's who or what is changing them. A friend tells a story, one that's been told before, but the details have changed. The punchline is different. The event happened in another place, another year. They insist it's always been this way, but it hasn't. A loved one hums a song they never liked. A coworker's laugh sounds just a little too sharp, their mannerisms slightly off. A childhood memory is retold at a family dinner, but the way they remember it doesn't match what has always lived in your mind. The shifts are subtle. A favorite phrase no longer in their vocabulary. Preference that was once strong, now absent. The way their eyes hold yours just a fraction too long, or not long enough. Everything in you says these are the same people. And yet, something is wrong. Not wrong in an obvious way, not enough to confront, but enough to make you wonder. Did they change? Or did you step into a version of reality where they were always this way? The clock reads 2:17 p.m. A few minutes pass, at least that's how it feels. Then suddenly it's 3:04. A meeting was supposed to start. A song on the radio was only halfway through. A text message was left unanswered. But now, time has leaped forward, and there's no memory of what happened in between. Walking down the street, the surroundings are familiar. Then, a strange realization settles in. Wasn't the last thought only a few steps ago? The distance covered is too great. The body has moved, but the mind has skipped a beat, as if an unseen force edited a small piece of reality and stitched it back together. Conversations are recalled differently. A movie watched the night before leaves no trace in memory, yet there it is in the streaming history. A dinner shared with friends. One moment laughter fills the room, and the next, the plates are empty, the night nearly over. No alcohol, no distractions, just time bending in ways it shouldn't. The gaps don't feel like forgetting. They feel like something else. A shift, a splice, a missing frame in the reel of existence. And the question presses harder than ever. Where did those moments go? Waking up, everything feels different. The body moves easier, lighter, or heavier, slower. Muscles ache without reason, as if recovering from exertion that never happened. A lingering sense of exhaustion clings to the bones, yet no restless night explains it. A chronic pain that lasted for years? Gone. A scar that should be there? Faded, or worse, in a place it never was before. Strength feels off, coordination slightly altered. A stretch once impossible is suddenly effortless. A favorite meal once delicious now tastes bland. Or maybe it's the opposite. Something always avoided now seems oddly enjoyable. People change. Environments shift. But the body is the one thing that should remain familiar. And yet, it doesn't. Health improves overnight with no explanation. Energy fluctuates unpredictably. One day, unstoppable momentum. The next, a deep fatigue that has no source. Hands move differently. Handwriting carries a subtle foreignness. Reflexes sharpen or dull. These aren't small things. These are the markers of something deeper. The body knows. It adjusts before the mind catches up, recalibrating to fit into the reality it has landed in. But if the body can change, how much else has already shifted? The car should have hit. The moment was too close, the timing impossible. Tires screeched, a sharp inhale filled the lungs, and yet, nothing. The impact never came. The vehicle that should have crashed is suddenly past, as if the world rewound for a fraction of a second and corrected itself. A slip on the stairs, the kind that should have ended in pain. Instead, the body regains balance in a way that defies instinct. A sharp object tumbles toward the floor, aims straight for a bare foot, but it lands just an inch away, resting in a position that physics shouldn't allow. A message arrives just in time, preventing a mistake. A meeting is canceled at the last second, avoiding an awkward or dangerous situation. A gut feeling insists on taking a different route home, and later, the news reports an accident on the usual path. Coincidence is the easy answer. Luck, perhaps, but when it happens over and over, when disaster seems to brush just close enough to feel its presence but never quite land, it begins to feel like something else. A timeline adjusted, a thread of fate subtly rewoven. The world shouldn't work like this, but in these moments it does. Thoughts shape reality, not in the vague, metaphorical way people like to say, but in a way that feels tangible, measurable. A day begins with dread, and everything seems to go wrong. A shift in mood, a deep breath, a new intention, and suddenly the world responds differently. A strong desire lingers in the mind. Change, escape, something more, and then, days or weeks later, the world subtly rearranges itself to match. People appear who were never in the picture before. Opportunities align too perfectly to be random. A place that once felt wrong now feels right, as if a version of reality exists where things were always meant to be this way. Emotions act as signals. A heavy, sinking feeling precedes a day where nothing flows, as if stepping into a version of existence where resistance is built into the air. But when clarity hits, when focus sharpens and belief becomes unshakable, doors open, paths clear, and events unfold as if guided by an unseen force. Every thought is a tuning fork, every emotion a frequency. The mind doesn't just observe reality, it moves through it, shifts between its layers. And if that's true, then what happens when that power is harnessed with intention? Reality feels solid, unshakable, a single path unfolding step by step. But beneath the surface, something less rigid exists. Choices don't just shape the future, they shape the present. The mind doesn't just react to reality, it directs it. A decision as small as turning left instead of right can lead to a conversation that never would have happened, a meeting that shifts the course of life. A thought, held long enough with conviction, begins to pull circumstances into alignment. A deep belief, this is the life I am meant to live, creates ripple effects in ways that logic struggles to explain. The people who seem to move effortlessly through life, always in the right place at the right time, maybe they aren't lucky. Maybe they've tuned into something, a frequency, a version of reality where things work. Every day, every thought, every emotion is a choice. Not just about how to act, but about which version of reality to step into. The path isn't fixed. It never was. The only real question is, which reality do you want to claim as yours? A childhood memory resurfaces, vivid and unquestionable. But then, a photo, a journal entry, or a conversation with a family member contradicts it. The event still happened, just not the way it was always remembered. A place once visited feels smaller, different. A street that should lead to a familiar landmark suddenly takes a turn that was never there before. A person from the past recalls a shared experience completely differently, as if they lived through another version of it. The past is supposed to be fixed, a foundation that everything else is built upon. But if reality itself is fluid, then what holds the past in place? If a shift in consciousness can move someone into a different version of the present, then what happens to the past attached to that new reality? Memories adapt. Stories change. Not because they were false, but because they belong to another timeline, another self. The past is not a stone carving. It is a story written in sand, shifting with each new tide of existence. And if that is true, then maybe, just maybe, history is not something to be remembered. Maybe it is something to be chosen. Nothing is fixed. Not the past, not the present, not the path ahead. Every moment unfolds like waves on an endless sea, shifting, rearranging, responding. The world that seems solid is anything but. It bends to perception, to thought, to belief. A door closed in one version of life may stand wide open in another. A missed opportunity in one reality may be a defining moment in the next. Some drift, carried by unseen currents, unaware that they are moving at all. Others grasp the wheel, set their course, and learn to navigate. Not by controlling the ocean, but by understanding how to move with it, how to choose which wave to ride. Everything is possibility. Every choice a divergence. Every thought a map. The question was never whether reality shifts. It always has. It always will. The real question is, where do you want to go next?